You are being watched. Not by the world. Not by the people around you. Not by anyone you can see or name. You are being watched by your own mind. Every thought you allow in. Every fear you entertain. Every resentment you replay at 2 in the morning. Every small surrender you tell yourself does not matter. It leaves a mark. Small at first. Barely visible. Almost harmless. But one day you wake up and realize your peace is gone. Your focus is fractured. Your spirit feels heavier than it used to. And the worst part? You never saw it coming. Because most people think the real battle is out there. With money. With other people. With circumstances beyond their control. It is not. The real battle is here. Quiet. Constant. Merciless. And it is happening inside you right now.
Welcome to True Stoic Journal, the path to inner control.
Think about what the mind actually is. It can be your greatest ally. Or your worst enemy. The same mind that builds discipline can build suffering. The same mind that protects you can betray you. The same mind that creates clarity can manufacture a prison out of nothing but thought. History has shown this again and again. Epictetus endured slavery and guarded his inner world with everything he had. Seneca faced the order of his own death with a steady hand. Marcus Aurelius ruled through plague, through war, through betrayal, and never lost himself. Not because they were born different. Not because life was kinder to them. But because they understood something most people spend their entire lives missing. The gate must be guarded. Every single day. Before anything else. Think about what happens to your mind on an ordinary day. Opinions arrive without permission. Insults land before you can prepare. Old memories surface from 10 years ago as if they just happened this morning. Fears about tomorrow appear in the middle of the night when the house is quiet and there is nothing left to distract you. Some of this comes from outside. Some of it comes from within. And here is the truth that cuts deepest. The inner voice can be the most dangerous of all. Because when poison speaks in your own voice, it feels like truth. This is where Epictetus begins. A man who owned nothing. A man who could be beaten, commanded, and discarded. His body belonged to another man. But his mind? Never. One story survived through the centuries because it carries weight that has never grown lighter. His master, in a moment of cruelty, twisted Epictetus's leg with force. Epictetus, calm, almost completely detached from what was happening to his body, simply said, "You will break it." The pressure continued. The bone snapped. And Epictetus looked at him and said, "Did I not tell you?" Most people would have screamed. Most would have let the violence of that moment invade their soul and make a permanent home there. Epictetus refused. The pain reached his body. And it stopped there. That is the line. That is the point. He understood something most people spend their whole lives missing. The event itself is one thing. What the mind does with it after is something else entirely. He taught his students, it is not things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them. Sit with that. Really sit with it. Because it changes everything. It means suffering often begins long before reality has even touched us. A person hears criticism and the mind expands it into total humiliation. A person loses money, and the mind calls it complete ruin. A person feels briefly abandoned, and the mind builds a prison around that feeling and hands over the key. The event may last minutes. The judgment can last decades. That is how the gate falls. Quietly. Through permission. Through repetition. through the slow acceptance of thoughts that should have been challenged at the door the moment they arrived. The Stoic does not deny reality. This is important. Pain is real. Loss is real. Fear is real. Epictetus never pretended otherwise. He limped for the rest of his life. His body carried the truth of what had happened. But he understood that pain becomes suffering only when the mind kneels before it and calls it master. That thin space between event and interpretation. That is where freedom lives. Most people collapse there. They fuse the two so completely they can no longer tell one from the other. The Stoic learns to pause. To breathe. To watch. To ask 3 questions before accepting any thought as truth. Is this actually true? Is this actually useful? Is this actually within my control? Those questions are the lock on the gate. Without them, the mind becomes open land for every passing storm. Now I want to talk to you about time. Because there is a quiet way a life disappears. It does not always collapse in one violent moment. Sometimes it fades. Through hesitation. Through postponed decisions. Through days that feel small and harmless until suddenly, years are gone. A person says later. Then again later. Then again. And before they understand what has happened, entire seasons of their life have been consumed by delay. Seneca understood this poison better than most. His life moved through the highest corridors of Rome, where favor could turn into a death sentence overnight. He rose quickly. He fell hard. He was exiled to Corsica for 8 long years, alone with thought, alone with time, alone with the realization that every hour was moving forward whether he was using it or wasting it. And in that silence, instead of allowing bitterness to take hold, Seneca sharpened something most people lose in difficult seasons. Perspective. He wrote. He reflected. He stared directly into time and saw what it was doing. When he returned to Rome, he wrote words that still cut today. While we waste our time hesitating and postponing, life is slipping away. No decoration. No comfort. Just a fact. Because postponement is rarely about time. It is about fear. Fear of effort. Fear of pain. Fear of change. Fear of facing what has been avoided for so long that avoiding it has become its own identity. Delay becomes the shield. But it is thin. And behind it, life keeps moving without pause. A person says they will repair the relationship later. Later becomes a permanent distance. A person says they will take care of their body later. Later becomes a weakness that cannot be quickly undone. A person says they will tell the truth later. Later becomes a habit of silence so deep they forget what the truth even sounded like. This is how decay happens. Through small delays repeated until they shape character itself. And then there is the crowd. The crowd has always been one of the most dangerous forces a person will ever face. Not because it attacks openly, but because it enters quietly and begins deciding what is true before thought has had a chance to examine itself. A person hears the same opinion enough times and begins to accept it. They carry fears that were never originally theirs. They burn with outrage that was handed to them before they could question where it came from. Socrates walked through Athens, questioning everything. Politicians, generals, poets, citizens. He was not trying to humiliate anyone. He was exposing a weakness in thought. And people hated him for it. Because truth disturbs people long before it frees them. He stood before a jury of hundreds, accused of corrupting the youth, accused of disrespecting the gods. His real crime was simpler and more threatening than that. He made people examine themselves. He made them uncomfortable. During the trial, he could have softened his words. He could have bent just enough to survive. He refused. He stood steady. He stayed clear. And he said something that has outlasted empires. The unexamined life is not worth living. Because if you do not examine your own mind, the crowd will do it for you. And the crowd examines with different tools. Approval. Shame. Trends. Fear. Applause. Silence. These things are powerful. They shape people slowly, invisibly, until a person is dressing for approval, speaking for approval, suffering for approval, and calling all of it